Hi everyone, this is Steve Wright with SCDLifestyle.com, and you're listening to the SCD Lifestyle Solution Podcast number 11. All right, on the phone with me tonight is my good friend and partner in crime, Jordan Reesner. How you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm living the life of perfect poops today.
that that is what we all dream of. That's what we're
Yes.
that's what we're here to talk about.
I guess I should just say I'm living the dream. Living the dream.
Yeah, but quantifying the dream in such terminology just makes it so much more vivid for everyone. All right, so tonight we were talking earlier, and we kind of wanted to explore an idea that we've added to our book recently, and it's something that we've really been working with some clients on the side, and we found it to be an extremely awesome approach to doing SCD and a great mindset to take. And we've started calling it building your safe zone. So build your food safe zone using SCD. And Jordan, why don't you just run with it for a little while and talk about what is an SCD safe zone, and what are we talking about here?
Yes, the safe zone. So it's not necessarily totally new, but it's just sort of a more specific technique based off of what we've been doing. So basically, when I first started the diet, Pecan Bread had these stages on their website, and that's a great website, by the way, so check them out for sure. But pecanbread.com, they had these stages laid out, and they were just an organization of SCD legal foods in an order of easiest to digest to most difficult to digest. And I found it intriguing because so many people that fail on the diet that I found and talked to failed on the diet because they just started eating SCD legal foods right away, and they ran into problems, and they never really got better. So I kind of realized that based on the level of damage I had, that maybe I needed to start the diet with easiest to digest foods first. I mean, that just made sense to me. If I'm really damaged and having a lot of problems, it probably makes sense to start with foods that are easier to digest first and work my way up to the more difficult to digest foods as I got better. So we kind of took that and we put our phases together using that, and we used a lot of pieces of other food reactions like around phenols and stuff. So we kind of color coded them for ones that have higher phenol content. But I don't want to get too much into that right now because really the food safe zone is the idea that you're going to focus on starting the diet eating foods that are easiest to digest first. And then you're going to progress through these phases and introduce foods that are more difficult to digest as you heal. And the food safe zone in and of itself is just a goal of building a sort of fallback of I have these, 5 to 10 foods that I know that when I eat them, I'll be fine and I'll feel good, and I know that. And once you have a food safe zone built, you're going to be well on your way to healing, and it allows you to really go out and experiment on the diet and really figure out your body and figure out what your custom SCD diet's going to look like. But if you really want to heal the fastest and most effective way, and if you want to stop the symptoms of digestive disease the quickest, uh, we find that using the food safe zone technique is the most effective way to do that. So basically, the idea is focus your first 4 weeks or about 30 days. After you transition out of the enteral diet, you're 100% focused on just building your food safe zone. So I think that's a good sort of background on that, and maybe Steve, you can sort of help get into more detail on some of the reasons on why the food safe zone works and sort of how you kind of begin to introduce that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you made some really good points there that I just want to kind of sum up real fast. So what we're talking about is using or evolving slightly what Pecan Bread had started and taking what we know to be logical about the fact that we're in a very bad state, a lot of inflammation, a lot of a lot of bad stuff's going on. We don't know exactly what the bacteria are doing, what the yeast are doing, but we know that logically, if we feed them the easiest to absorb and digest foods to your stomach, that you're going to have the best chance to recover faster than anything else. It's logical. Feed you a food that is 90% chance that you absorb it all, or feed you a food that has a 50% chance, even though the 50% might taste a little better or something. It's not going to help the healing. So it's that idea of after the intro diet's done, focus 30 days or so, maybe a little bit longer. It's going to be different for everyone, but roughly 30 days is what we're finding on just building yourself a plateau of health. Get your symptoms reduced as fast as possible and really focus hard for 30 days and build yourself a little like bubble so that you can sit inside this bubble and then look at the rest of the phases, and maybe you want to try something that's a little bit more advanced because you just can't resist anymore. You need a little variety, and this allows you to have a bubble to reach out, try something, and if it doesn't go well, you can hop back in your bubble, and 3 to 4 days later, you'll be fine again. So what I was talking about with making sure that the foods you're eating are the easiest to absorb for your intestines is all about the phases and the stages, as well as the pureeing. So the first step in digestion is really chewing. And I don't know about everyone out there listening, but I can't chew a piece of food to a pulp like I can, turn it into pulp in my blender or in my food processor. So by starting off these foods in a pureed state, you're removing the first step of digestion that you might be messing up. It's not your fault. And honestly, if your body is in a better state with a higher immune system and the inflammation's down and the healing's taking place, you can get by with really fast eating and little chewing. But you got to realize that right now the rules are different. For the first 30 days, the rules are different. You're trying to tackle a disease, and so it's time to change it up and do everything in your power to get yourself the most easy to digest foods, which is in pureed form. It's cooked and de-seeded, and it's using the work of the people like Pecan Bread and the work of Dr. Feingold and his phenylsaccharide guide, and that's what we've put together in our charts. So the reason why some foods are easier to digest than other foods is basically just on the molecular makeup. And there's no reason to get into the crazy science, but I think we can all agree that a pureed carrot has a lot less fiber in it than pureed broccoli or something like that. Maybe or tomato. Tomato, broccoli, some of these foods are slightly more fibrous. The molecule structure at a molecular level is much more intense than something like squash or carrots. And so when the inflammation is really high and there's a bunch of problems in the digestive tract, minimizing the molecular structures and allowing your body to really have a chance to work if it's possible is what we feel is in your best interest, basically.
Okay, Steve. So you made some great points there, and I want to just get a little more in depth with you on it. So, for example, I'm just starting the diet. I've done the intro diet. I feel horrible. I want some results, man. I want to feel better. I don't feel good at all. I don't care what I eat. I'm ready. I pushed past die-off. I pushed past all the cravings. How do I do this? How do I build my safe zone? What do I do first?
Well, the beautiful thing is that the first thing you do is think about what are your current allergies, food allergies, or food intolerances. Where are your current problems? If all of your life you have reacted to, dairy or nuts or whatever it may be, fats, the first thing to do is really write down, make a list of what your first intolerances and allergies are, and then cross-reference that with our phases. And we're looking at phase 1 foods first. And what you want to do is pick a vegetable in phase one and cook it up and add that to your intro diet menu. So for instance, if you chose acorn squash, you'd make acorn squash, and after doing the intro diet for 3 days, you'd make acorn squash, add that into your current repertoire of foods, which is the intro diet, plus any meat that you want to eat at this point is fair game. So really open up the floodgates, play with some fish, some beef, some pork, turkey, chicken, anything you want, and then mix in the acorn squash for 4 days and see how that goes. And then at 4 days, your symptoms should still be tracking towards better. Choose another vegetable, introduce it. Then 4 days later, you're going to want to choose probably a fruit to kind of, change things up a little bit. And basically, you're going to step through the phase one foods, and really, it's not a big deal if, you don't have to try 100% of phase one, but you do want to give an honest try to, maybe hit 80 to 90% of phase one before you move on to phase two, because obviously phase one foods are phase one for a reason. They're easier to digest than phase two foods. But depending on the time of the year and depending on what you're feeling like, whether or not you can tolerate a bunch more squash and carrots, it might be time for you to move on to phase two. And so you just follow the same process.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to kind of step back for a second and let everybody know, if you're confused right now about what our phases are and what we're talking about, we have a free download at scdlifestyle.com/free.php. There's also a link in the right sidebar of our blog at scdlifestyle.com. Get yourself a copy of that download. It's free PDF, and it's the 5 phases charts, and that'll help you kind of follow along. But so, okay, Steve, so you had a great introduction there, and that helps really kind of step us through the way that you're going to introduce new foods, some of the things that are a little easier to digest. But talk to me a little bit about some of the pink elephant in the room here in terms of SCD. Everybody thinks almond flour, everybody thinks yogurt, everybody thinks dry cured cottage cheese. In our phases, we don't list dairy and almond flour. So can you talk a little bit about why we didn't do that, and just elaborate a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we've gotten this question quite a few times, and the reason is that Elaine originally created her starter diet with dairy, including yogurt and dry cured cottage cheese, and it really just comes down to what works in practice and what have we seen work when we've helped people. And when we interviewed, as many people as we've talked to who have gotten better on SCD, what we found is that in a extreme disease state or in the beginning stages of doing SCD, whether or not dairy has always been fine for you, if you remove it, your chances of creating a safe zone, getting rid of your symptoms, and really having a successful SCD transition are 1,000 times better. It just always works out that way. I can't explain it in science terms, but in practice, when we help people, it's exactly what works. And so kind of why we didn't build dairy into the phases is because we felt that we don't want to encourage people to hop right back into it. The fact that people do so well without it, I think to us really, or to me, really indicates that there might be some problems there long term, and it's wise to treat it as what it is, a food that could potentially be very good for you and really spice up your diet, but also has the potential to really set you back. So what we're encouraging people to do is create this safe zone, create the bubble I talked about, and then go out and try dairy again. Once you've gone from a extremely inflamed, horrible symptoms, disease state, you've built yourself a bubble where you've gotten rid of most or a lot of those problems. Then try dairy again and see if dairy really is something that you'll never have a problem with the rest of your life. But I think one thing that we've talked about a couple times, and I'll make the point again here, is just because it's SCD legal doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because someone puts a rubber stamp on a piece of paper saying that you can eat it, it still doesn't mean that you should eat it. So we're encouraging you to evaluate, again, whether or not dairy should be a part of your diet. And I was just going to say, I think the same thing applies for almond flour. It's just almond flour is a big setback food, and it's great for the diet, and it's great for people that it works for. But by not including it in the phases, we're also encouraging the same behavior. Treat it as a possible risk, assess your tolerance, and then, move on.
Yeah, and you made a great point there about, we always talk about the fact that the SCD diet is something that you have to customize for your body. You got to tweak it a little bit. You got to make your personal SCD diet. And this is all part of that. And your personal safe zone for food is going to be different than mine. It's going to be different than Steve's. It's going to be different than anybody online because you're making it for your level of damage, your inflammation, your food reactions, your level of leaky gut, whatever's going on with you. And we talk a lot about this in the book, a lot about how that you really have to use these phases to build your safe zone and then move forward and introduce food. So I think that to kind of wrap this thing into a little box, in a sense, if you want to go out and do the safe zone right now, what you need to do is if you don't have a copy of the free phasing charts, get them. Or if you already have the book, they're in the book as well. But get the copy of the phases and start at phase 1 and pick a food and start pureeing it. Pureeing helps in the beginning. Eventually, after a week or two, you probably don't need to puree anymore, but that helps in the beginning. So you're going to start pureeing a food. You're going to pick one. You're going to introduce it. And one thing I want to stress is I don't want people to get too freaked out by these phases and have more structure and more foundation and more walls and constraints. So I want to encourage you to just know that, say you pick a couple of foods in phase 1, you don't have to check off every food in phase 1 vegetables before you can move on to phase 2. If you do well with a couple of vegetables in phase 1 and you want to grab a couple in phase 2, by all means, build your safe zone. It's your personal safe zone. They're just there in order of ease of digestion for you to, do a logical progression. So I just wanted to add that in, that you don't have to get too walled in by these phases and feel like, oh, I can't try this food because it's on phase 2 and I still haven't checked off all the phase 1s yet. You're just trying to build your personal safe zone. So you might even tolerate a phase 2 food better than you do in phase 1. This is not the Bible of digestion. This is just guidelines that you're going to use to build your custom version. And it's going to be different than everybody else's out there. So start with your first food, try it for 4 days, see how it goes. If it goes well, pick a next food. Build your vegetables first, and then add in some moderations of fruit. But build your safe zone. And once you start getting some normal digestion going, some better nutrition absorption, some better bowel movements, you're going to start feeling better. And you're going to have more confidence. You're going to know that you have a safe zone, and now you can build on top of that safe zone, introduce new variables, and grow and expand your diet. But the big take-home point here is that if you want to get started, get a copy of our book or get a copy of our free chapter and start working towards building your food safe zone so that you can move on and start feeling better. That's the big take-home point. So I don't know, Steve, if you have any kind of final wrap-up points to bring all this together and your final wisdom on it and what you've learned helping people through this so far.
Yeah, I just want to echo exactly what you said, and it is your safe zone. Everyone is different, and one area that we didn't really touch on too much here is just your palate. So not only are you matching foods to your state of inflammation, your problems, your digestion, but you're also matching it to your palate. So, you might only like one food in phase one. So eat that one first and then move on to phase two. And the goal is, like I said, to, you know, just stay in the lower phases as much as possible to create this safe zone. And when we talk about safe zone, we're talking about meat, all the different meats, plus somewhere between 8 to 10 vegetables and maybe like 2 to 4 or 5 fruits. And, so basically you should be introducing 2 or 3 vegetables to each fruit that you choose. And you build this little menu up, and what it does is it allows you to really um, work SCD in the different areas of your life. We haven't really talked about quantifying what our safe zones allow us to do, but they allow us to, say we have an extremely important business meeting, we have an extremely important weekend we have to go on, or like myself, maybe I'm experimenting with some crazy food combinations. I know that I can return to these foods and clear up anything that I've been messing around with in like a day, maybe 2 days max. And so I have complete faith if I know that, you know, I have a wedding to go to, or there's just something in my life that is extremely stressful, and I can't afford to be stuck on the toilet at all, and I don't even want to think about digestion. I know I just come back into this bubble, ride out, the couple days or week or month that it takes for, me to figure out my supplements or figure out what's going on. And then bam, I'm back into the game and I'm choosing new foods and I'm moving on with the healing process. So I just want to reiterate what Jordan was saying. It's all in our book. We have meal plans, all the cooking guidelines to do all the foods are, and for phases one and two are in the book, and that is your tool to put it together. And if you're getting it put together and you're still having a little bit of help, just email us and let us know. Like I said, this is not just something we just are, putting out there as theory. This is something that we're using as digestive coaches, and we're helping people every day with this stuff. And that's, something new that we're doing. If you're interested in that, you're listening to this, you want a little extra help with this, it's something we can help you out, and we'd love to help you out with. So that's pretty much what I got, Jordan. Do you have any last thoughts?
I think you summed it up pretty well, and I think it really comes down to if you want to feel the best as fast as possible, you got to build a safe zone that's custom tailored to you. If you want to stop your symptoms and have better digestion, better nutrient absorption, more energy, and less diarrhea, constipation, and stomach pain, you got to build a safe zone. That's what it comes down to. And we've had success doing that ourselves, and we've had success helping hundreds of people at this point to do the same thing. And the big takeaway is, I think you hit on it earlier, but I think it's a huge lesson that I just needed to say again is just because it's SCD legal doesn't mean it's going to be okay for you. It's not the Bible. It's not everything and anything for digestion and digestive diseases. It's sort of guidelines, and you're going to be different than me, than Steve, than anybody else. So that's the big takeaway here is just because it's SCD legal doesn't mean that it's going to be okay for you. So build your safe zone, heal fast, get better, and then enjoy life. And also, by the way, if you're worried about the holidays and you want to start feeling good and you want to make sure that you're going to be okay during the holidays, use your safe zone. And then you won't be on the bathroom and you can hang out with your friends and family during Christmas. But stay tuned next week. We're going to be talking about the holidays. We're going to be talking about Christmas. We're going to be talking about SCD Legal Christmas SCD Legal New Year's. So stay tuned for that. And shoot us an email at jordanandsteve@scdlifestyle.com if you want to learn more about coaching. If you have any questions, if you need help with anything, just let us know.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. This has been Jordan Reasoner and Stephen Wright, and you're listening to the SC Lifestyle Solution podcast number 11. Thanks.